Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundless success to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And, you talk about one-hit wonders of the 60s and 80s. Well, today in our podcast, it might be a one-hit wonder because I think this encapsulates most things of what's going on, and that's DOGE. Your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin, to kick things off?
Yeah, it is really amazing because that has become the focal point of politics. It is all about saving the government and the taxpayers' money, and it has revealed so much waste, so much fraud, and yet this is the hill the Democrats are choosing to die on. And what absolutely confounds me is that if you had any business background, everything that is going on with DOGE is completely standard. You don't hire the people that put the budget together to audit. You bring in an outside auditor. And what really cracks me up is that if a public company had tried to have their own people audit themselves, the SEC would rip them a new one. The Democrats would be up in arms that was going on. And yet that's exactly what they're trying to do with by stopping DOGE.
Okay, we have a lot to talk about, but first thing I would like you to discuss, please, is motivations, Democratic motivations behind the protests, the unhingedness, there is no such word, the swearing, the whole deal. What is the motivation? Because you think, before you say, okay, it's like, I heard this analogy, I think it was Laura Ingraham, your family, your whatever, your family is, heavily in debt, you would welcome someone to help straighten out your fine. You wouldn't be going, get the hell out of my books. You'd say, yeah, I need help. But why the outrage?
I think that the outrage is about campaign money, because who is going to take the biggest hit when everything is streamlined? It's the government workers. Well, the unions of these government workers, and it is absolutely amazing to me that government bureaucrats are even allowed to unionize. But the unions are actually the ones behind most of these lawsuits to stop this. Well, who does the union support? The Democrats. They pour tons of money into Democratic candidates. So if the Democrats fail to protect these jobs, which should not be protected, Washington needs to start working like the real world. You don't do your job, you get fired, period. But if they don't stand up for these useless workers and all of the fraud, which is being funneled into people that then funnel it to Democratic campaigns, they're going to be out a lot of money. The DNC has almost had to go bankrupt twice in the last 8 years. The donors have already started saying, well, you know what? We're not getting involved in this because Harris wasted $1 billion in 100 days. So we're not going to be coming to the table with our money anymore. You are talking about a massive deficit for the Democrats. And I think that's what this is going to boil down to. They are trying to save their campaign money.
I think you are 100% correct. I think in order is A is what you've just articulated. B is protecting unions. The real what but protecting unions would just be business as usual. Why they're scared shitless is because it's a gravy train. It's the biggest grifting operation in human history. How do you like that? And I love this because it encapsulates so many things and so many people. Elizabeth Warren walking to her car, someone, independent reporter, which are where things are going, by the way, asked her these pointed questions. He was getting pushed. I thought they were the party of love. He asked her the greatest question. He goes, how on $150,000 a year have you amassed 12 million? That says it
Yes,
all. Does it
does.
not, Dr. Eric Lopkin?
It does say it all. How has Bernie Sanders become a millionaire? How has
Multimillionaire.
multimillionaire? Yes. All of these people came into Congress 50,000, 100,000 to their name. They make
Yes.
117,000 a year, and yet they're walking out multi-millionaires. How is that happening? Because all of these slush funds that are being uncovered, they funneled money to Democrats. There is so much fraud. There's actually more fraud being uncovered than either Elon Musk or Donald Trump initially anticipated. And the other problem that the Democrats are going to face is that they basically controlled Congress. They had the Senate for the last 6 years. They lost the House 2 years ago, but barely. Other than that, they had it for the last also 6 years or so. This is incredibly positive for the taxpayer. It is incredibly popular with the voters. We're seeing 79, 80% of the voting population say yes, they're in favor of this. And if it goes through and all of this is uncovered, the Democrats, one, have to answer the question, why didn't they do this? And two, how do you justify taking all this money?
I think that is a huge issue. And I'm not splitting hairs, but if you look at the 30,000-foot picture, really the Democrats have ruled. I know there's been, capable, with Gingrich and blah, but overall they've had control of the purse strings since FDR. I mean, overall, the big picture, okay? So they're the one who put this together and did nothing about it. I think it is so huge. I think they are so scared shitless. We have no idea. I'm being honest with that because this is a huge money laundering operation to the DNC. I don't know how you explain it if you are them, but I do know, and I want your opinion on this one. I'm sure our listeners do as well. They're great at creating boogeymans. Okay, who and their best accomplishment was Trump, although that's faded away. They're trying to demonize Musk. Do you think it works?
No, I think their attempts at demonizing are basically over. They tried over and over again. Trump was Hitler. He's a threat to democracy. And the voters said, no, he isn't. And they voted him in. Now they're yelling, oh, it's a shadow government and a constitutional crisis. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, shadow. I was actually thinking we should start instituting a new feature on the show, the misused phrase of the week. And
I
this
love that.
and
No, that is
this
excellent because
this
it would
week,
be week to week.
oh yeah,
Yes.
this week would have to be shadow government Because they keep yelling, oh, Musk is running a shadow government. Okay, first of all, the phrase shadow government is about a group of people running the government behind the scenes,
which is
out,
what's
out,
going on.
right, out of the public eye. Everything Musk has done has been incredibly public. There's no
No, but what Musk is beyond the financial situation. What he's also uncovering is the shadow government.
yeah,
Duh.
exactly. And we know for a fact now that the Democrats literally ran a shadow government for the last 4 years because Biden was incapable of being president. And they covered it up. They kept running the government their way, mostly being run by these unelected bureaucrats that are now being outed.
100%. Now, the allies in the press, how do they come to the aid of the Democrats, which you're trying to do? And let me just say something. You had a very good point about, people not believing the shit anymore. But I think it's bigger than that. I think there's been a sea change. You saw that at the Super Bowl, booing Taylor Swift, applauding ruckusly Donald Trump. But I guess what I'm talking about is that in 2016, 2017, blah, blah, up to 2020, it worked. So it's not just it always didn't work. I think people are waking up, which is more dangerous to the Democrats. Do you agree?
Yes, I honestly believe the final nail in the coffin of what the Democrats are trying to do was the Biden Trump debate, because people saw Joe Biden for who he
Great.
was. And for, again, the 4 years going back to 2019 when he announced he was going to be running, all of that had been swept under the rug. He had ran his basement campaign. You had Corinne Jean-Pierre constantly saying, "Oh, he runs circles around us. Nobody can keep up with him behind closed doors." Well, the doors were open, and now people saw it, and so they started to question. Now, there's still, unfortunately, a large group of diehard Trump derangement syndrome Democrats that they'll still believe anything the Democrats are going to tell them about this administration. But fortunately, that seems to be fading. There seem to be less and less of them.
Yeah, there is no question about it. How does this tough question, but do you think it has long-lasting negative implications and ramifications for the Dems? Do you think behind the question is, can they put enough smoke and mirrors, subterfuge, judge shopping to disrail it enough that it doesn't get the kill shot?
I don't know. It does depend on a couple of factors that the Democrats don't necessarily control. I mean, you do now have the DOGE caucus in Congress is now 100 Congress people on both sides of the aisle. So DOGE is picking up steam despite what the Democrats are trying to do. However, so far, most of this has relied on the fact that the Republicans have actually stayed in lockstep with the plan. There's been a lot of behind the scenes negotiations to get things done, but they've actually stayed together. This, unfortunately, is not the Republican strong suit. So if the Republicans start infighting again, then the Democrats can recover a lot easier.
Wait. I want to interject one thing on that. It's it's related directly to Trump's success / popularity. If he continues on the roll, everyone's in line. If there's some screw ups, missteps, whatever, then it's a whole different ballgame. Correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right. At this point in time, Trump has an approval rating of 53%. That's his highest approval rating ever. 80% of people polled said Trump is doing exactly what he promised to do. Whether they agree with him or not, they're all saying, yes, he is doing exactly what he said he would do on the campaign trail. No other politician has an approval rating anywhere near that.
Well, speaking of approval ratings or disapproval ratings, the Democratic Party's approval rating is 37. And let's just get, we're not going to go crazy digging deeper into that, but a turtle, a Democratic turtle, or social disease would have 25%. There you go. Correct?
Right. I mean, remember that at Biden, when Biden was actually near his high, they were talking about he was down at 37%. So this is basically just a continuation of the past 4 years where their approval rating has been falling steadily. And Congress as a whole, I don't think they've had an approval rating either in either party above 40%, I think, in the past decade.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. I do think that here's a couple of things, and what do you think of this? I think there's it's in the news now that Trump's been talking to Putin, the hostage release, blah blah blah. I think if there is peace in Ukraine or something close thereof, I think that further strengthens Trump. I think it further alienates and downgrades the Democrats because, of course, they're going to protest and blah, blah, blah. And people are going to think at home, mom, pa, kettle in Indiana are going to think, what the hell's going on here? We got, we averted nuclear war. So I think that's also a contributory factor how that goes. Do you agree? If he pulls out some version of a relative peace, I think it's Katie by the door. Check, please.
If he manages to end the Ukraine war, if he manages to have Hamas stand down and there's peace in Israel, the Democrats are not going to be able to come back from that for, I'm going to say, 4 to 6 years minimum. You're starting to see, you mentioned the talks with Putin. Vogel was being held by the Russians. He was taken during the Biden administration, and Trump got him out. Again, it's still 3 weeks into his presidency. And I find that absolutely hysterical because now you've got Democrats yelling, oh, inflation is up, inflation's high. You said Trump was going to bring down inflation. It's like, for the 4 years that inflation skyrocketed, they said nothing. 3 weeks, they expected him to flip a switch and fix 4 years of Biden's problems.
But something, you say that in a flippant way, it's funny. It is funny. But it also points to two things. It points to two things: that they have no business experience or insight or knowledge whatsoever, but bigger than that, they're flailing. When you're calling someone, like, you're getting in an argument, well, you didn't paint your house last year. You're kind of reaching for things. Come on, anyone knows. I mean, it doesn't register unless you're an absolute moron. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. What are you, crazy?
The thing is, the Democrats are playing to the cameras, and they seem to think it's working. But if you watch all of these protests, and they're all focused on DOGE, first of all, the swearing. All of a sudden, the Democrats have decided swearing is cool. Swearing is going to get them the attention they need. Well, most of the country doesn't care about the swearing. No,
I humbly disagree. I think it looks extremely unprofessional.
Oh, it does. It does look unprofessional. No, I'm saying it's not.
I think people do care. Oh, no. Then we 100% agree. It's very unimpressive. Yeah, it's like going to a doctor. Okay, if you're on a football team, swearing's cool because that's part of it. If you're going to see, a cardiac specialist and they're saying your effing heart looks like effing shit, you're kind of thinking, whoa, dude, I better see someone. It's not appropriate. Hello.
No,
Or you're in a business meeting. Effing sales suck. You're like, what? What?
yeah, it's a reach for them. And I mean it's so out of character also that it's so obvious they're putting on a show that
Yeah, hello.
one Democratic leader, and I can't remember what her name was, actually
From
said,
Oregon.
I
From
don't
Oregon.
I don't usually swear, but, and then she let go the F bomb and she said, don't tell my kids. It's like, if you wouldn't do this normally, putting it on as a show isn't helping. The other important thing to notice about these protests is that they're all being held in Washington, D.C. Deep blue Washington, D.C., surrounded by the government employees who are potentially going to be let go. So you're preaching to the choir, but you're not talking to the voters. And in fact, Chris Murphy had a town hall in West Hartford, Connecticut over this past weekend. And there were more people there opposing him in deep blue Connecticut than there were supporting him. And in fact, they actually cut off the number of people they were going to let in because there were too many people that they were concerned were going to shout him down. This is
Isn't it indicative? But isn't it indicative of the sea change? You're probably going to talk about the Super Bowl. Things are changing, aren't they, Doctor?
They really are, but this is indicative. They think they're doing well, and they talk to CNN and MSNBC and CBS because those folks are reinforcing this bubble. How many years ago did we start talking about the echo chamber? Well, now Washington is its own echo chamber, and they're not hearing the voters.
Well done, Dr. Love. Yes, you're not going. Yeah, it's really the ultimate echo chamber, Washington D.C. and you have maybe 50 people at the rally. Not looking good.
Yeah, it's not looking good at all. There has been a massive sea change, and part of it is activity. Nobody aside from Carnivore Bites, we at Xvadio also have the Raw Naked Truth podcast, which is a daily news podcast, very short news bites. But the Trump administration has actually been moving so quickly that we had a situation a few days ago where we reported a story. Now, this is 8:30 in the morning or so. We recorded the podcast, we uploaded it. By 9 o'clock, the story was wrong because it had moved on already. Trump had taken care of the problem. He's been moving so quickly, it's hard for people to keep up. And they're used to 4 years of, well, the president doesn't get to the White House until 10 a.m. He calls a lid to all public events at 4 o'clock. Oh, he's not meeting with leaders for dinner. He's got to go to bed. And they can't believe how much is getting done.
I would agree with that. And they're also getting in tune with the hypocrisy. Like people like Elizabeth Warren, or the whole actors, Bernie, when he was uncovered by RFK Jr. about, hey, by the way, Bernie, you're the number one, receiver of funds from the very people you're trying to basically alienate and indict, that is the pharmaceutical industry. But it was a great clip on, I don't know where I saw it, it's not important, but a independent reporter, right, like we are, is following Elizabeth Warren to her car and came up with the question. And I think this type of thing, not just this question, but the hypocrisy of the Democratic elites is overwhelming. Ask the question, hey, Elizabeth, how have you amassed $12 million in assets on $150,000 salary. You have to be one heck of an investor, Dr. Lopkin,
Yeah,
a guru.
it is absolutely amazing. And it also goes back to, we've talked about the constant hypocrisy of Congress over and over again. Yeah, if a private citizen uses inside information to trade stocks, that's illegal. If a congressperson does it, that's fine. You know,
Ask Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart went to jail for doing what Nancy Pelosi does every day. So
100%.
you're seeing this hypocrisy be absolutely exposed. And that's the part of it. And now you're also seeing, the US aid numbers that were published. It's like, yes, it wasn't just wasteful. They were sending money to Politico magazine, to the New York Times, to the BBC.
To terrorists.
Right. Terrorists. They were still giving money to the Taliban. The American taxpayer is starting to look at this going, oh, wait a minute. You're telling me that they were paying off the media outlets that suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop?
Shocking.
They're starting to put things together, and the Dems are still going, no. Don't ignore that over there. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, shadow government, yes. Well, we'll see how this all plays out, Dr. Lopkin. Usually, or we never really just focus on one topic, but I think this week's podcast really just needed to be done in that fashion. However, our listener, go ahead.
There's so much with DOGE going on, and one of the things I love, talking about the phrases the Democrats keep using, constitutional crisis. And they said, well, only Congress can decide where the money is spent. We allocate the money. Now, I'm trying to get a hold, and if there happens to be one in our listenership, great, please contact us. But I am trying to get a hold of a constitutional law attorney. Because as far as I can tell, and I have gone through the Constitution over and over again looking at this. Yes, the Congress is responsible for the purse strings. Their job is to allocate funds. However, as far as I can tell, there is nothing in the Constitution that says the money that they allocate has to be spent. So yes. The president would actually have the ability to say, well, this money was allocated to to agencies in the executive branch. We're not spending that.
That's 100% correct. Yes, they appropriate funds, but managing the funds is certainly in the realm of the executive branch.
Yeah, so this manufactured constitutional crisis that they keep yelling about.
Is that shocking to you?
No. Let's face it, most political causes are manufactured, and this is on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, but I agree on both sides, but I'm sorry. In the last 10 years, the Democratic Party has gone off the rails. That's just a fact. I don't carry water for the Republicans. They got more than their share of warts. But the Democratic Party is about to be in process of becoming unhinged.
It is, and it's absolutely amazing because, take a look at the comparison between the Democrats of past administrations and the current Democrats. Bill Clinton fired.
Be throwing out in his ass.
Bill Clinton fired 350,000 government workers. Donald Trump offered them a buyout, and Congress went nuts. They said, oh, no, you can't do that. But it was fine when Bill Clinton fired them. Obama was called the deporter-in-chief for getting rid of illegal aliens. But when Trump tries to do it, oh, no, that's overstepping. You can't do that. It's like the Democratic Party of even the Obama administration has gone by the wayside. And in fact, there is a liberal podcast, Pod Save America. They had three former Obama staffers on the podcast stating that they wish they had done what DOGE is doing.
Yes, I
So
did hear that. I think your point is well founded, but you're right, and you did articulate that. It's twofold. It's not only just because a Republican did it, a la Trump. It's because there's two things. Because when Bill and Obama did it, it was different. But it's beyond that. It's because the party of even Obama does not exist, and that's scary.
it is scary because essentially what that means is that the most vocal part of the Democratic Party has now completely fallen prey to the squad. And the squad, as far as voters are concerned, has been losing power. They lost members in the last election. They are the least effective legislators in Congress, not my words, actually rated by Congress itself. And yet
I
this
don't
is
think they have any. They have really no inclination or no desire to legislate anything. The best comment I ever heard is AOC is a social influencer, media or social media person that just happens to be a
to be
congressperson.
it's very true. And that's something else. Congress, I'm going to go back to the first Trump administration, maybe even the later years of the Obama administration. But Congress has shown that they don't actually want to do their job. They want to be in Congress, but they don't want to actually pass anything. They don't want to make any decision. That's why they kept yelling at Biden to do an executive order. This way, even though it was completely illegal for him to do it, this way they didn't have to take any responsibility for the decision because they didn't actually vote on it. Well, if you take a look at what Trump has been doing, what he proposed for the Gaza Strip, what he's doing with DOGE, all of this is basically the same thing. He is saying, all right, you can do your job, but if you're not going to do it, we will do it for you because it has to be done.
I would agree. And yes, very well said. And again, as right now, I think the Democratic Party is right now on their heels. They were without leadership, and it also juxtaposed Trump, and the people around him versus the leadership, so-called leadership of the Democratic Party. Schumer, the other losers. It's not a good story, is it?
No, it really isn't. And those who are in the leadership positions, Schumer especially, had an amazing opportunity to talk with Trump. It's not like Schumer doesn't know him. Schumer and Trump go back further than Trump being in politics because Schumer was from New York. Could have said, all right, so how do we move forward? The same way that Reagan and Tip O'Neill did, the same way that Clinton and Newt Gingrich did. But the
That train
Democrats
left the
have,
station.
yeah, the Democrats have decided that they are going to be the resistance. That is another poorly used phrase because honestly, if you're going to, use an analogy, this is the Star Wars analogy. Donald Trump's first term was Star Wars. He was the rebel, he was fighting against the evil empire, and they got a major victory, and then the empire took over. And the Biden years were the Empire Strikes Back, where the empire was completely in charge, the rebels were almost destroyed, and now you've got Trump coming in for his second term. It's Return of the Jedi, where they finally destroy the empire. Now, the big problem with this is, if you follow the analogy, the rebels between Return of the Jedi and, I think it was called The Force Awakens, the first Disney Star Wars movie. The rebels then did nothing and the Empire gained power again. So that still is a possibility.
We'll have to see how that unfolds, but certainly not a boring time to have a podcast. And as we talked about before, our listeners can contribute to the podcast, can't they?
Yes, they can. Go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. Message us there. You can also go to xvadio.com/connect. Send us a message there. Let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at the Carnivore Radio website, xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.